Well, good evening, everyone. My name is Sherry Rice, and I'm CEO of Access to Healthcare Network. What a lovely crowd we have here tonight. Just enough people, not too many. This is going to allow us to have a very intimate setting, to be able to talk about the program tonight, to have a question and answer setting. So I'm very excited for what we're going to learn tonight. With that, I want to welcome you to tonight's program that will introduce you to an exciting new project that we hope and we assume will be coming to Reno this spring, P2I, and introduce you to the people involved in this very, very important work. One of those people is Dave Humphrey. Dave, you want to give a wave? He's a local Renoite who is responsible for moving forward the vision that Washoe County would and could be a perfect environment for such an important endeavor. David and I met several times to discuss Access to Healthcare Network's role in this project. And in the course of our meeting, Dave decided and kept insisting that I would be a great keynote speaker for tonight's event. And I kept telling him that even though I can talk about Access to Healthcare Network for hours, as most of you have been subjected to my passion and my rather long-winded description of who we are, what we do, and how we serve the community so many times, I knew that there was something more that I wanted to share with you tonight. And I think that is very relevant to tonight's interesting presentation. It's about our hometown. It's about Washoe County. It's about why we in Reno and Sparks are not afraid to push the boundaries, and why so many fabulous programs like P2I have started right here in our community. Do you believe in everyday miracles? I know I do. I believe in the miracle of the pebble in the pond, and the effect seen and many times not seen as the pebble so magically makes the ripples on the water. I believe in the synchronicity of the pebble and the ripples, and together they are the perfect storm for creativity, passion, change, and yes, everyday miracles. So why our hometown for this project? Because we in Washoe County believe in the miracle of everyday life and the gift of ordinary people who do such extraordinary things, don't they? Acts of kindness, acts of integrity, and acts of compassion with no hidden agenda or expectation of any acknowledgement. Why my hometown? Because we in Reno and Sparks believe that everyday miracles happen by doing the right thing, even if it hurts, even if it makes us unpopular, even if it makes us give up sleep, and even if it gives us gray hair. We stand up to be counted when it matters and take the risk of being on the wrong side because it is the right thing to do. Why your hometown? Because we in Washoe County believe in the everyday miracle of the collective consciousness, the group collective. We are not a group of Lone Rangers. We know we are better at helping people to have richer and fuller lives if we put aside our agendas and manage to all get in the same boat at the same time and even row in the same direction sometimes, as hard as that may seem. But we in Washoe County are such experts at leaving our baggage outside the door. Why would we be doing this in my children's hometown? Because we in Northern Nevada believe in the miracle of dedication to a cause, unwavering commitment to being a part of the betterment of our community, the betterment of everyone in our community, not just a chosen few. We understand that by helping the neediest, we are really helping ourselves. Now, why would we do this in your family's hometown? Because we in Washoe County believe in the everyday miracle of giving more to the world than we take away, without taking stock of who is in the lead, who's following, who's giving, who's receiving. No tally of us who is in the plus or the minus column, just the satisfaction of being. Why would this be in your loved one's hometown? Because we in Reno and Sparks believe in the everyday miracles that happen when people like you and me, decide that they want to be part of something bigger than themselves. With an understanding that cause and effect, what goes around comes around, and we truly are our brothers and sisters keepers are not just catchphrases. They are absolutely a way of life for us in our community. So why, I ask you one last time, why our hometown? We in this room and so many others in our community know why Reno Sparks is the ideal place for a program like P2I to incubate. We are not afraid to throw pebbles into the water, are we? Why? Because we never, ever have to do it alone. Access to Healthcare Network is a classic example of the synchronicity of the pebble and the ripple. Hundreds of people helped us throw the pebble called Access into the pond. And as important are the hundreds of people who helped us make sure that our ripple would take care of those that needed us the most. And I thank them every single day for making us not fight this fight alone. So how about it? Do we have the energy to throw one more pebble into the water and watch as the ripples affect the women, children, and families of our community? I think that we do. On that note, let me introduce Dave Humphrey to you. And I think after tonight's presentation, you will want to be part of throwing that pebble into the water with me. David?
Well, it's really a pleasure to be here. And first of all, I want to say that part of our excitement with our foundation is having really discovered Access Health Network. You have in this town a national story on how healthcare can be changed, and it's with Sherry Rice and her team. And what I feel what's going to happen is that it is going to be the combination of a revolutionary idea and the ability to execute it on the ground. And that's going to be the story of healthcare and the way that we solve healthcare. First of all, the foundation is joined with the Neurological Health Foundation of Texas. We have 2 board members with us. I'm also a board member of that group. Northwest Autism is our sister group, and the executive director is here, Beth. But I want to tell you a little bit about ATN, because ATN has been doing think tanks for 12 years. We're extremely good at what we do in the area of special needs and special needs children, a complex area. The first project was done with Northwest Autism Foundation, and at that 12 years ago, autism was not seen as a medical condition. It was seen as a neurological condition without any treatment possible. Meanwhile, we saw children that were projectile vomiting and diarrhea, and they were treated with electric shock treatment. We decided at the foundation to go ahead and take a look at bringing together some of the best treating institutions of the country, headed by Mass General, Baylor, University of Washington, Cleveland Clinic. And with these people, we put together over a period of several years the medical underlying protocols for autism, and that organization and that idea attracted about $70 million at NIH grants. We now have insurance in 26 states, including Nevada, on medically treating autism. On the recent statistics, even though they were grim on 1 in 50 with autism, 25% of the families said, our child no longer has the diagnosis because the treatment allowed us to have the child escape autism. This is the future, and we're proud of that accomplishment. The other is we put together 26 of the best gastroenterologists, and we had an insert in pediatrics. This took us 2 years. When we do these think tanks, we actually bring experts in their area together. John Mahoney is our executive director, and they work 6 months in advance in order to go ahead and have them work in teams. Then they come together with electronic voting, and they vote on their individual sections. And then after a couple of years, we then publish, and this one was in pediatrics, and it changed the way autism is seen for gastroenterologists all around the world. And we have thousands of kids now being treated. One of the conclusions we had is half of all the kids with autism had gastrointestinal disease. And the treatment protocols were set in pediatrics. And again, one of the things we loved is this was an 80-page insert in pediatrics, an 80-page insert. Not one word was changed. So we like what we do. The other project, and we're publishing it, we just got word, in fact, today, that Pediatrics has accepted an insert in pediatrics on can we identify a child at the age of 1 that has not yet had autism, and with microgestures and other visual signs, can we predict that that child will develop autism, and can we intervene and significantly change the outcome? The answer to both those hypotheses is likely yes. This will be a 40-page insert in pediatrics. It's taken us 2.5 years. And again, it was headed by the person who runs the Harvard Ladders program, the #1 expert in the planet. This will allow parents to understand at the age of 1, if they see these types of gestures, to intervene and prevent autism before it happens. In our pilot program, the pilot program had 36 children that were identified. They would have 50-50 would have had autism. At the end of 2 years with intervention, none had autism, none. But here is the incredible, I was just talking to Dr. Adams about it. The average IQ at the end of that time was 131. Imagine the difference between having an autistic child with a cost to society of $3 million and an untold cost to the family. Be able instead to be a fully functional member with an IQ that could teach at Harvard in microbiology. We're looking at a seismic shift with this paper. This will be published in Pediatrics. But as we've been taking a look over the last 12 years, something has been quite disturbing, and that is we've started to understand what is the cause of autism. The scientists now are concluding that 65% of the autism is in the womb during pregnancy because of toxicity. But it's not just autism. This was a Stanford publication, and it changed the world. People started saying it's not just a genetic problem, because we would not have gone from 1 in 10,000 to 1 in 50 with a genetic problem. There's something happening. When I tell people this story, they nod and say, well, of course this is probably what's happening. We all instinctively know something serious is going on. So again, we brought people a year ago, and we had a think tank, we reviewed information, and we decided this is our next big project. And by the way, I cannot think of a better place to do this than in Reno. The elements are perfect for it. So let me take you through some of the fundamentals. We've seen in the last 40 years an incredible shift that is taking place. On the left-hand column, you see that we've done extremely well in the types of diseases such as tuberculosis and hepatitis and rheumatic fever. All of these are way, way down in children. But look at the right-hand column. Areas that are chronic diseases are up exponentially. You hear about the figures of autism, but it's happening with multiple sclerosis and Crohn's disease and juvenile diabetes. Something is happening in a serious, serious way. It's not gone unnoticed. JAMA, the Journal of American Medical Association, came out with an unbelievably accurate and insightful article about the increases of childhood chronic conditions. And the last paragraph I put to the right, health and social welfare systems are unprepared for the rapid growth and demands that will arise from these epidemics. This is written by Jim Perrin, who was actually the head of our ATN project when we were working on it, who now is the president of the American Academy of Pediatrics. We're not talking about anything here about alternative. We're talking about this is known, and it scares people in the medical profession. Okay, let's take a look at the numbers. If we take a look, we have to conclude that we have unsafe pregnancies and we have unhealthy children. Let's look at the numbers. Miscarriages used to be 5%. A shocking figure, 31% of all the women that will get pregnant will have a miscarriage. Half of them won't even know they have it. 31%. It's nature's way of saying you're not having a baby. Preterm is 12%. The average IQ loss with a preterm baby is 8 points. They're twice as likely to die as adults, and they're twice as likely to have a preterm baby themselves. But now take a look after birth. Autism, 1 in 50. Asthma, 1 in 8. Allergic eczema, 1 in 5. Serious food allergies, 1 in 12. Going down the list, dyspraxia. My great doctor, Dr. Jay Schroeder, knows dyspraxia, maybe the only one here in the room, but it's the muscle spasms that don't work quite right. You can't throw a ball quite right. 1 in 10. 1 in 10. My God, what is happening? So if you add all of those up together, we have a pretty grim figure. Cancer now is the second leading cause of death with children. Do you think that cancer develops during childhood? It's developing in the womb. The cancerous substances that people are ingesting. Autism 1 in 50. Now, the right-hand column is an amazing list. This was done by Mount Sinai, Dr. Landrigan, who is the leading expert in the world on toxicity in children in the womb. And he's concluding by blood spots that they did laser background treatment, this is what's causing autism. So if somebody says, gosh, I don't know where autism is coming from, this is where Dr. Landrigan said it's coming from. It's coming from lead, methylmercury. It's coming from organophosphates and organochlorines, things that should not be in baby to begin with. But when we talk about 1 in 50 in autism, in the Northwest Autism Foundation, this is what we think of. This is a child with autism. This is a child that all day is smearing fecal matter throughout the home. This is the life of many of the parents with children with autism that are untreated. So when we talk about 1 in 50, we talk about what it would be like to have a child that every single day, and if you try to stop them smearing fecal all over them, they scream until you allow them to do it again. This is the lives of these children. You don't see them because they don't go outside. So let's go with conception until 5 years old. 31% miscarriage, 12% preterm, and here's a shocking figure. By the age of 5, 40% of all children have a chronic disease they will not recover from. 20% of those children will have a mental illness they'll not recover from. My God, what is happening? That's 40%. The chances of a child, once the pregnancy has occurred, having somebody who's normally healthy like we used to, is 17%. The burden that's going to cause the medical system is unparalleled, unbelievable. It's also currently a $500 billion problem, childhood disease. Let's compare that to Social Security. John and I are going to enjoy Social Security here. It's $625 billion. Childhood disease is $500 billion. We can't be paying seniors $600 billion while we're paying to take care of our children $500 billion. It's not going to work. So how did this happen? The world stood still when a small group called the Environmental Working Group found that the body burden of children was not limited to just a few things that were getting through to the fetus. There was the belief that the womb somehow protected them against all these toxins. Right, Tom? That's what we all thought about, right? Well, this group tested the core umbilical cord blood of children and compared that to what mother had in her blood, and they found that everything was getting through. The CDC went ahead, and we know the people at the CDC, they went ahead and said, we better replicate this. And for $20 million, they replicated it, and then they published it in Pediatrics. 99% of the women are so toxic in the womb, it will affect the child. 25% have mercury at such a level it will affect 12 points of IQ. This is absolutely ridiculous. Why wasn't this publicized? It was not publicized because the American Academy of Pediatrics quite rightly said, we don't know what to do about it. It's all through our food supply, so we're going to say to the government, please take some action and protect our food supply. We're going to do it here in Reno. We're going to do it here in Reno. We're not going to have people in Washington, D.C. solve this problem. We're going to begin by changing behavior habits here. This is a developmental time of the baby. That brain develops from 9 weeks to 16 weeks. The woman finds out that she's pregnant, and she starts getting her first glimpse at what she should do in changing her habits about the 7th or 8th week. It's too late. It's got to be preconception. This program will work with pregnancy, but ideally it's 3 months before the pregnancy begins. P2I is a game changer. This was an article written in part by the CDC after they failed to do a population study. They got the same thing we did. They did their think tanks. They knew exactly what would it take to change outcomes. They went to Denver and they completely failed because the doctors were too busy to talk to the women about it. That's why Access Health Network is critical to this program. It's not about more science, it's about more compliance. It's about educating people on what they need to know and working with them to make sure these results don't happen. So what are we projecting on this 500-person study? And by the way, Alan Meadows and Ginger early on with the 80,000 employment group said immediately, we will do this study for you. I tell you, that was an unbelievable commitment on their part. We want to thank you for it and thank the commitment that you made. You'll hear more later. Well, this is supposed to be funny. So, as Yogi Berra, it's tough to make predictions, especially about the future. You got to be sort of in my generation to find that funny. I know, Yogi Berra. So we're predicting 50%. we will get a 50% drop in pregnancy complications and a 50% drop in childhood illness. 50%, 50%. What has the CDC said? We went back and talked to the CDC. They're projecting if we do this properly, it'll be a 70% drop in pregnancy complications and a 70% drop in childhood illnesses. That's the CDC's prediction. They're in charge of pregnancy health. So we're going to be conservative at 50%. But we need to stick our neck out and have a goal. During our think tank, we brought a pal of mine, David Berger. He's a pediatrician in Tampa, and he wanted to be here tonight. And I said, David, I can just talk about what you've done. He's had 500 pregnancies using this protocol that he's developed for the last 10 years. Unbelievable nutrition, genetic testing to see whether they can absorb folic acid, thyroid testing, and unbelievable fastidious working during the pregnancy, and he helped really develop a protocol. 500 babies in a row, no miscarriage, no preterm births. We're doing a retrogressive study of his practice. Helen, this is an amazing figure. And we're predicting 50% because these kinds of numbers wouldn't be believable. But we were all there in the think tank, and we found 5 doctors, including Dr. Traver in San Francisco, with the same protocol, getting the same kind of results. There was a study done in 1990. It was done in England, published. It was done in Surrey University. They took very high-risk couples. You can see on the first column, this is normal in UK, 25% miscarriage. Their history in the group of 367 was 38%, stillbirths 1% in the nation, 3% in their group, low birth rate 9%, 15% in the high-risk group. They went on an extremely careful diet with no toxicity, high levels of nutrition, and a great protocol for the doctors to work on. Here's the numbers. Published, validated, 0010. We're projecting 50%. I'd like to do better than that. Preterm facts. People think preterm is a baby a little bit early. It's a disaster. Let's take just one part of a protocol. Everybody likes Diet Coke. Has aspartame in it. I'm not taking a shot at aspartame, but a study in Denmark of 53,000 women showed for every can of Diet Coke you have a day, it increases 18% your chance of having a preterm child. Does anybody in this room know that? Will anybody in this room forget that? Okay. The cost of a preterm child is $50,000. The cost of a normal pregnancy is $4,500. So it's not just the fact that we want kids to be healthier. We can't afford this anymore. We simply can't afford it. We have collected an unbelievable team of scientists, and that's the way we do things at the forum. We just go after the best. And Carol Wagner, who you're going to hear from shortly, is among that category. She's a Kellogg researcher. She does a lot of work for the NIH, and she just finished a study that she was able to get a sharp reduction in pregnancy complications. She cut the preterm birth rate in half, and that was just using high doses of vitamin D. We also have Cedric Garland from UCLA, who's a top epidemiologist, and Bob Heaney, Dr. Heaney, who has published 400 articles, and a lot of them have been on pregnancy. These are the best we have. We're using a protocol that will be an IRB protocol, and Carol Baggerly will tell you more about it. We're just really pleased at what she's done. She and Leo Baggerly have the full confidence of a whole bunch of scientists and doctors in the world, including this list and this list. She comes from allowing the aerospace industry to know how to build a plane cheaper with data. She's the best we could find in data, and I just love her. She's just a remarkable person. The American Medical Association published last month a 20-page treatise on saying what is wrong with our medical system, and unless we change it, this thing is going to collapse of its own weight. This is not an alternative publication. This is JAMA. This is the American Medical Association. And what they talk about is we have to be able to have leadership come from our doctors. Our doctors need to step forward and say, we're going to change this. And when they surveyed their doctors, 90% of them said, it ain't my fault. And JAMA is saying it is your fault. You are captains of the ship. You lead this movement, and you lead us to better health by prevention, preventing things before they happen. And I think it's a great call to action, and I think there's some incredible doctors in this country that can provide that leadership, and hospitals that can provide that leadership. Okay, the most exciting thing, if you have revolutionary ideas, you need revolutionary ways of explaining them, right? We all know, what would we do without Google and the internet? There's a company called Intercall. which is the best there is in this world in doing virtual conferences, like Second Life. You've all heard about that. They go ahead and they dominate this category, and they do it for IBM globally. You can go to a conference, it's like you're there. You can go to forums, like you're there. You can take CME courses like you're there. Instant access. But this has been just with our major corporations. We have a representative from Intercol, and they're going to make a dramatic announcement here tonight about their commitment to this project. They are unbelievably good people, and they're a $3 billion plus company that's saying enough is enough. We've got to get information directly to parents and support our great doctors in being able to lead through technology. That's right, Jay, that's you. That's you. Okay, so he's going to tell you more about it later, but this includes workbooks. The ability of a woman and a man to get a workbook so they can go through and chart their daily activities, put all their lab tests in. It will revolutionize the way people can get information. They can also take the CME course and audit it just like a doctor. They'll know exactly the protocol and what to do. A lot of behind-the-scenes information. We will have unbelievable data. This is Carol Wagner, who you'll hear from. Unbelievable work that she just got done on pregnancy. Now, how about the cost of this? The whole project is $1.2 million. A cancer study costs $170,000 per patient. The National Child Study spent $11,000 recruiting patients to study them on toxicity and gave up on it of no value whatsoever and spent $30 million. We're spending $1.2 million. Why? Because the recruiting, the ability of having corporations to help and work with us dramatically cuts down on some of the costs. And Access Health, an unbelievable resource. So we're putting together things that businesses like to do, and that's to do it right. The results will be highly accurate. We're also talking with Save the Children. There's an interest that Save the Children has. This is not just for the wealthy. We want to have this as a global movement so that children can start out. It doesn't matter what their income is. It doesn't matter what their situation is. They're not going to be born with a deficit of 15 IQ points. Without treatment, this is the face of autism and childhood diseases that I see. This is a 14-year-old child that's tied to a crib in Indonesia. And she keeps company with 3,500 other children that are tied to cribs. The overwhelming problem of dealing with children with developmental issues at birth is not just carefully being cared for at home, like the child you saw in the fecal material. It's parents having to give their child up, institutionalize them, and tie them to cribs. We don't need to do this. The goal, you'll hear from David Trepalier, head of Easter Seals in Oregon. When we did this project, he says, I ain't doing this for some science project. I want our forum to commit in 5 years we're going to affect 1 million children. And we said, done. And that's the goal, and we're going to do it. And that's the vision of David Trepalier from Easter Seals. Safe pregnancies, healthy children. If we were able to do 1 million, it will save $50 billion. Who wants to put up $1 million and make $50 billion? I want to thank everybody here. This is an unbelievable opportunity of being here tonight with so many people that are so committed to the project. So we're not going to hear from Carol Wagner, who could not be here tonight. So I just shut the IT off. Okay. So thanks very much.
I'm looking at a wall, so I apologize. And I'm sorry I can't be there. That was a very inspiring talk by David. Just to give you some background, I'm a neonatologist. So when David was talking about preterm births and the burden to society of children who are delivered as early as 17 weeks early, that's an incredible burden. And cost to society is enormous.
Carol, can you
Yes.
Can you back away a little bit from the screen? Perfect. Perfect. Very good.
How about that? Okay. So that's my perspective, and I've been a neonatologist at the Medical University of South Carolina for the last 21 years, and before that I was in Rochester, New York. What has been an overwhelming observation by myself and colleagues is that we have done little to prevent preterm birth. And even those babies who are born full term, some of them come to the neonatal intensive care unit because they're sick. And we have diagnoses like respiratory distress and pulmonary hypertension. Something happens in the lung development early on so that the blood vessels within the lungs are affected. We're just baffled. What causes this? And you have some suggestion. So we did studies with literally hundreds of women, pregnant women, that started at 12 weeks of gestation with something very simple. It was an intervention using vitamin D, and these women were randomized to get one of 3 treatments. And we had to abide by the rules of studies and the fears that existed surrounding vitamin D, that vitamin D was going to be a teratogen. And our premise was that we were going to do a very simple intervention and fix the deficiency. We weren't suggesting that vitamin D was a cure-all. In fact, it's one pre-pro hormone. It's considered a nutrient because you can get it from your diet, but the main source is from the sun. So this intervention that we did started well after organogenesis. So that means that the organs in the body had already formed. They hadn't really fully developed. But what we found, if you look at our data, so there was a study that was funded by the National Institutes of Child Health and Human Development and another one by the Thrasher Research Fund. What we found was that we could improve vitamin D status with a higher dose, 4,000 international units a day, compared to 2,400. We also found that the health of the mothers was better by simply supplementing what was missing. But that's only one nutrient, and it doesn't take into account the environmental toxins, the environmental stressors that exist in everyone's environment, in everyone's place. So whether it's Charleston or Reno or Starks, we all have that burden. And we've pretended for a very long time that it didn't matter. And so now it's really pretty amazing to the synergy that I feel exists with this project, P2B. It is really going to empower women before they get pregnant to identify deficiencies and environmental stressors and to actually make a difference. And it's not people say, oh, it's not rocket science. It really isn't. It's not really a mystery. So why are all of these rates of preterm birth? It's been staggeringly high. So in South Carolina, we have one of the highest rates of preterm birth, and our state rate is 12%, and among African Americans, it's 18%, and that's known throughout the United States. African Americans have a much higher burden. And we also see higher rates among Indian populations. And we think it has something to do with vitamin D deficiency. But again, even when you prevent and you treat the vitamin D deficiency, you still have these adverse outcomes. And so it has to be a whole package. You have to look at the mother before she conceives. What is missing, what would she benefit from, and follow her very carefully through her pregnancy. And we already know that kind of intervention really does make a difference. But it also has to be a partnership, and so that the mother has control and is truly empowered by the data that she gets. And we've seen this with our moms and individuals who participate in grassroots health by filling out questionnaires and actually getting your vitamin D level every 6 months. It changes your behavior. And it really facilitates an understanding that is necessary for change. So I'm sorry again that I'm not there with you, but I do believe that this project that is going to be born in Reno is the most exciting, and it will be a game changer, absolutely. So I thank you very much, and I don't know if anyone in the audience has any questions for me, or if you want questions later on. We didn't actually talk about that, but anyway, if you want to, could someone let me know if anyone has any questions?
So do we have any questions for Carol while we've got her? Jay? Schroeder? Carol, did you hear that?
Yes, so they're actually here in Charleston. There's Boeing has one of its 4 world sites, and so they have spent. They've invested in our community, and they are trying to educate individuals about good nutrition. And there's a Boeing health center that's actually headed by Jan Key in pediatrics. And so I think that it's recognized, but again, it has to be embraced by the entire community. And if there are just these silos or pockets of knowledge without full integration, you could see how it would fail. So one of the things that this program is doing is giving the information and having these shepherds for schools and to teach the children about good nutrition. And the children will, as they always do, prompt their families to make changes. And so there's really, it has to be really grassroots, again, at the grassroots level to make those changes. And I see that absolutely it's not just one nutrient. It's I wrote a paper with 3 other colleagues that was published in Nutrients in 2012. And in the paper we talk about the importance of other nutrients. We focus on vitamin D because there are many aspects of that need to be solved. But I agree. I think that's a really good point, and I see that as an essential part of this program.
Got a question?
Oh, absolutely. Yes, that's essential. To see where the question was if we're testing baseline, and yes, you really need to be able to see where someone is, and you want to achieve a certain level. For example, in vitamin D, we know that optimal conversion to the active form of hormone, you want to have something called a total circulating 25 hydroxy vitamin D. It's a very long, anyway, your vitamin D needs to be that. So I agree. I think that has to be built into any program.
Carol, thank you very much. We're going to put you back on audio.
Yes, sounds good.
I appreciate your time. We know it's a bit later in South Carolina than it is here. But thank you very much for participating.
I have been pleasured to hear a number of childhood type memories tonight, meaning like people talking about their children. I have children too. And one of the things I wanted to ask you, how many are parents? A few of you? Oh my gosh, almost all of you. Do you remember those childhood years when you would kind of cringe and whatever because the common word that was being shouted was mine? Or maybe that's mine? My children were so good at this. They were so good at this that I really thought that I would have one less child or maybe two less children by the time that they grew up. And now I'm a grandmother, and I walk through the grocery store, and I look at this happening, and I say, oh, isn't that cute? It'll pass. In 2005, on August the 13th, 2005, I walked into my oncologist's office, who was treating me for breast cancer with chemotherapy, and I told him that I am not doing the remainder of the treatment. I had 2 more treatments left to go because the peripheral neuropathy, the pain, was so great. And what I had read about it was that it might not go away. And I wasn't going to do it. And he said to me, and I'll never forget it, Carol, you've got to. Guess what my mind did? It said, it's my body. And all of a sudden, I knew what those children were fighting about. It belonged to them. I have to confess, I did not have, for those years of my life, probably 40 years of that sense of possession, until all of a sudden I felt truly threatened. And believe me, to this day, which is 7 years later, 8 years later, I have not regretted one moment of that decision. That sense of ownership is what brings me here tonight. My experience, Dave mentioned, is in the aerospace industry, although I have to confess now I'm 7 years in the healthcare field, so do I have some credibility in that field now? Maybe just a little bit. What I have seen, this sense of mine, we, everybody, everyone in this room, are in the middle. We are flat dab in the middle of a healthcare revolution I didn't even know existed. In 2007, we established Grassroots Health to take care of a major vitamin D deficiency thing. What we found out very fast was the individuals in this country and other places, but in this country I knew about, were not able to get a vitamin D test when they asked their physician. So we initiated a project, of which Carol Wagner herself was part of, in 2009 to provide testing, vitamin D testing, to individuals all over the world. We were flooded all over the world. We have had more than 10,000 participants in a testing and study process where the individuals themselves are paying for this process. It is not funded by a grant from NIH. It is funded by the individuals who take part. And every single one of them says, it's mine. Every one of them does. That's where we are. This whole revolution is being pushed, led, demanded by individuals. But the reason they can do it, is one and only one thing. It's called measurement. If we couldn't measure vitamin D levels, we couldn't give them that tool. They couldn't do anything about it. There's a beautiful book that I got Christmas a year ago from one of my sons called The Institutional Revolution. And it said every single institutional revolution is a result of some change in the capabilities of measuring. At this point in time, we have many measurement tools in the industry, and there is being led another revolution, which is to provide all kind of boxes to measure your health things at home, yourself, by yourself, and yet there happens to be a minor, and I might even say major issue here, which is like, okay, fine, now what do I do with the data? What you are sitting on, not sitting on, and you're taking a great deal of action with the P2I project, is playing the role of a leader in the integration of the demand, the measurement, and the tool to make it happen in a very short period of time. I want to talk, as I've been invited to talk, about the data and the fact that data doesn't come accidentally. To get actionable data, that data on which you can take some action, whether you're an individual or a healthcare professional or a member of the audience in any field whatsoever, that has to have been designed properly to start with. Just take a quick look at the top thing there, the scientists. In order to have actionable data, you got to have data that's worth paying attention to start with. And that is the role of the scientists like Dr. Wagner, like Dr. Berger, like other people on the P2I project who say, this is what we need to look at. I really don't need to know how often you do your eyebrows, because I'm not selling eyebrow stuff, okay? But they are the experts that say, this is what we need to measure. Dave talked about workbooks. In one sense, I talk about guides, which is once they've decided what it is we need to measure, this gets developed into a very formal guide package for them to be able then to track and do something about, and that's shown there. I want to move down to really some other choices here. The guides are the keys to taking action. You've got to start with what is necessary. Pregnancy, we've got the P2I program thing, but imagine the pregnant woman has her baby, then what? You don't want to turn her off. You don't want to have her say, well, I don't want to track this child because I've had the baby already and everything's hunky-dory. You don't want to turn her off if, God help us, she has a miscarriage. She still cares about her health. So you can't have it be just pregnancy. It's got to deal with adults. Almost from day one, you've got to have all these options out there ready for them. And so those guides have been developed and are being developed for all conditions. This preconception to infancy project, this is just a mock-up screen that we put together, but I want to hit some of the highlights there for you. The way it works is there's the checklist. A person chooses to enroll, they get a checklist to see, oh my gosh, I need to do this, this, and this. There's some specific things there about vitamin D. The tracking health and testing is of the essence. I get to choose. Well, I don't need to track smoking because I've never smoked, right? I don't need to pay attention to that, so I don't select it. On the other hand, I do need to track my weight, my shoe size, maybe not, all right? So I get to choose outside of the defined study things what it is I need to track because they make sense to me. Testing, there's going to be vitamin D testing in this project. There's also going to be toxin and pesticide testing in this project. So all of those are part of that. And those results go back to the individual as well as to their healthcare practitioner. The customization is also there to help the participant say, yeah, I really want to track insomnia. Insomnia is not part of the regular program where one of the scientists has said, I want to track this, but this individual has a hard time with it and they want to see what it's correlated to. So they get to add that and track that. Once all of this is done and is being done, it's not been done, it's done ongoing, the analysis and the sharing. Each and every office visit that this person has with any practitioner, she can actually choose, oh, I want to show them this, 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 and this. I want to show them about my weight. I want to show them about my insomnia. I want to show them about this. And ask, what do we do about this? So you have all of a sudden put this healthcare practitioner into a beautiful role of being a consultant. A consultant because the patient has walked in the door saying, this is me. Please help. That is the outcome, to me, of this whole P2I project. And we are absolutely delighted to be part of it and to help it on its way as quickly as possible. So thank you.
So I was pleased to meet Dave Humphrey about 6 months ago. And I've had the pleasure to hear so much of so many statistics that, wow. I mean, I'm just pleased to be able to be part of something that can potentially change the world. Those numbers that Dave talked about, you know, the incidences of 83% of, by the time a woman is pregnant to the age of 5 years old, P2I, could have some serious disease that could have been preventable with communication. There are probably thousands of bits of information I absolutely have no knowledge of that could have helped me. I mean, whenever all of you raise your hands that you all have children. If any one of you had a child in that age group with a serious disease, that would mean everything to you. You would learn as much information as possible. You would do whatever it took to become informed and, again, also help others if you could by being able to use the data, the big data. You know, we all talk about clinical trials, and you know, they're very, very expensive. They take many years, and it's a very small group of people. When new information comes out by leading researchers, it takes potentially up to 10 years for it to be really absorbed by the masses. And so I'm pleased to just be part of this. I want to devote the rest of my life to this because it's the right thing to do. Why wouldn't we all do it? You know, we all talk about the revolution in healthcare. You can't turn on the news without hearing stories about Obamacare and this and that. Regardless of what Obamacare is or isn't, by definition, it's insurance. It's not preventative. It's let's pay for something and fix it. We've got this huge pharma industry that is just making tons of money, zillions of dollars. No, we're not talking millions, zillions, on selling you drugs to treat all these diseases that could have been preventable. So here we are in Reno. I live in Carson City. I have for the last 15 years. So this is my hometown too. I am just thrilled that we are going to embark upon a joint venture between Intercol and the Forum. And I have with me Dave. Would you please join me here for a moment? I just happen to have a signed memorandum of understanding that was signed 4 hours ago by our Executive Vice President. Thank you. I'm just absolutely thrilled that our billion-dollar company has decided to bring this technology to the world. Thank you, Dave. This is yours. That's your signed copy. So think about that. So what we have is we have a platform. It's a technology base, and there are many other related technologies that allow for engagement, virtual engagement to the world. Our fastest growing region is China. I've managed the Asia-Pacific region for the last couple of years, and it's a collaborative environment where you can have 30,000 concurrent attendees in at any given time. It's free. It's flash-based. It works on a Mac. It works on a PC. It works on a tablet. It works on an iPad. It works on a smartphone. It works in the Philippines. If you speak English and somebody you're trying to help only speaks Chinese or Russian or Korean, no problem. Just type away in English and they will get their message in Korean. As simple as that. There are alerts and notifications. Think about bringing together, reducing that 10-year time frame to get the needed, I mean, just people are dying to get, they would pay anything to get this information that is free. to the masses in growing regions in Philippines and China. We're going to start right here in Nevada. And after Nevada, you know, we have plans to take this to Texas and potentially other states, and then maybe to China and Philippines, or wherever the application can do the most good. So on the screen here, we've got an example here of a global platform, and I obviously can't do a features and function demonstration of this because it takes 2 hours. There are so many bells and whistles that just think about all that matters is getting the right information to the right people at the right time. You know, right now, the doctor spends 7 minutes with you in the office. Wait a minute. You could, using workbooks and the data, and having people put in what's relevant to them and what their prescribers or thought leaders, doesn't even have to be your doctor. Forget about the legal HIPAA regulations at the moment, that'll be covered. You'd have access to that information whenever you want. The collaboration capabilities here are such that it is engaging 24 hours a day, 365 days a year. So this is just one platform, one example, and this one went live January 15th, and there are thousands of these examples. We are the largest in the world. I'll show you the world's largest virtual engagement. So it's a great medium for a TED presentation. It's a great way to have threaded forums and messages and collaborate, and nobody would say.
Hello and welcome to the Clinical Advisor's first ever virtual conference on advances in diabetes care. Please enter the exhibit hall promptly at 6:15 to attend the sessions. Faculty members will be online after each presentation to answer your questions. After the conference, stop by the exhibit hall to find out more information about additional clinical advisor offerings, as well as our affiliates mycme.com and monthly prescribing reference.
So it is just a message, but it can be a very personalized message in a very personalized location. You can have continuing medical education credits where you can have doctors and P2I products and services throughout the world that are proven to be toxic-free, without contaminants, that people can go to find things for their infants, for example, whether it's a blanket or a pacifier or whatever it happens to be. There's the ability to share information. People don't need to register. You can capture whatever you want. You can authenticate against any database. You can use Facebook, Twitter, LinkedIn. I mean, 1 billion people have a Facebook account. That's all you need. But you can have your physicians in there. You can have all types of courses, for example. It's used by the world's largest employers. We do have a mock-up here of a virtual wellness center for P2I. And again, it is just that. It's just a mock-up. And I do not have, unfortunately, Dave walking across the screen here, but that's coming next week. You have the ability to search. We make it very easy to find subject matter experts and relevant content. So if you are, if your child has celiac disease, for example, and you're running through a regimen that your physician recommends, you can do searches for other physicians, other people that are in the same categories, and learn what is and isn't working. Large-scale clinical trials are capable through the platform, cost-effectively and securely. So the look and feel can be anything. So it's an ongoing environment. So there's always a what's new button. So there's a personal journey button. There are so many features that we do not have time to talk about, but whether it's a video, a booth, a white paper, a TED presentation, it's all there. And you can hyperlink to it, you can download it, you can access it, you can search, you can go into very specific locations. First of all, these look like booths. They could look like a hospital room. They could look like, we have had live video cameras in open surgery, in ER, broadcast to train other physicians. So think outside the box. It's not just a flat static, it's not a website, it's an engagement center. So you've got all the capabilities to have it very customized. Let me use this platform extensively, and and they've got 300,000 employees.
Hello, everyone. I'm Becky Edwards, Director of Employee Communications. I'm thrilled to welcome you to our first ever Global Employee Communications virtual conference. Through this conference, we've brought Crotonville to you virtually. Over the next few days, you'll have the opportunity to hear from great speakers, learn more about the terrific work that's going on across our function, and connect with your colleagues. Our goal is that this conference will serve as a starting point and a foundation for driving gold standard approaches across the employee communications function. The virtual environment enables us to come together and learn from each other within the convenience of our own time zones. Throughout these 3 days, you'll have the opportunity to experience live broadcasts, watch training videos on demand, and chat with senior leaders and communicators across GE, and explore other resources. Have a look around, and thank you for joining us.
So again, it's just a message, but let's take a look at what people really do inside these environments. 16,000 people were using this platform at that time. And it's a global platform. So there were people from China, there were people from France and Germany. You look at the speakers that are in this. This was telepresence. We can capture video from any source. It can just be audio and slides if that's the case as well. And I'm going to go ahead and hit my speaker so you do not see, you do not hear him because he's just giving a message. Again, it's on wireless, and it'll just take a moment here for him to begin. But I've got a green Q&A button here. This was run a couple months ago. I can click this green Q&A button right now in whatever individual or group email addresses that are set up behind the scenes. They would get that immediately. So you can hold office hours using best practices. Hey, every Tuesday and Thursday, the leaders of celiac from Johns Hopkins are going to be there to answer questions for these physicians. You can have physicians' rooms, you can have patient rooms, you can restrict access by any domain, email list, profile. There are just, think of anything you want to do can be done through the platform. So I can click this. I can participate in, I can get a podcast. I can participate in threaded forums. I can get moderated chats, copies of the slide deck, etc. Have agendas with calendar reminders, and again, tailor a presentation to me. So whatever I'm interested in, as new content gets loaded that's related to me, I would immediately on my smartphone get notified. In China, in Korea. Another popular use of the platform are like slides and video. There are just so many examples of this sort of thing. And they do this all day, every day. So you can have it wide slides, narrow slides, full screen, talking head, anything you want to communicate in whatever manner that you want to can be communicated.
GE has grown exponentially over time.
You can have chaptering capabilities, and the metrics are phenomenal. So I can just grab the slider bar, move it to the next speaker, but the people on the back end know with absolute certainty what is actually being done. So for CME courses, you can set percentages of time or absolute time that people must complete all types of activities before they proceed to the next course, and there's automatic certificate generation. Again, you can go full screen. It's engaging from a perspective of you can have polls and surveys between every single slide so that you're getting feedback throughout the platform. Capture the minimum information you need to get people in. Use video on the microsite. You can have 5 different ways to get into the same environment. So I can have one that's tailored to pregnant mothers. I can have one tailored to obstetricians. I can have one tailored to researchers and clinical trials people. So you can run polls. It's very engaging. So another thing that people do in the platform, for example, is have meeting rooms. You can have breakout sessions. So real time, you want to use Skype, put up your Skype ID. That's a standard feature in the platform. Instantly we can do video chat, group chat, blog chat, forum chat, thread, restricted chat. So I'm in here, and of course you can push whatever content you want to them. You can download it, etc. I can participate in booth chat with a real person. Somebody could actually be walking out on stage, welcoming it to this environment. I can type my message here, but if I only spoke Swedish, for example, not only would it translate, yes, you're welcome. the current message, but the history of messages for which location I'm in. So for example, I can see what Michael wrote in English, and then how's the efficacy rate? You can thank Microsoft for that, because this is using Microsoft's Bing Chat Translator. And the same works for double byte languages as well. So I can put in Chinese, Japanese, Korean, etc. And that works for any type of communications. So, and that works individual chat, group chat, blog chat, forum chat, etc. I can do a search for person or a topic or an individual. I can see people who are online. It's all customizable. So in this case, I can just see people at GE Corporate by the name of Tom, because there's 16,000 people here. And when it's live, you'll see people live. You can set meetings. So to make a long story short, it's nothing more than a great way to communicate the needed information down to the lowest level. It works on kids' iPads in China, anywhere. So I'm just thrilled to begin on this joint venture where we can bring the revolutionary technology and communications platform to the revolutionary content, and hopefully we can really improve the lives of everyone. Thank you.
Thanks so much. Thank you, Dave. This is truly a revolutionary platform, and I know it's hard to see all of it, but when it comes together, working with the local practitioners, the local hospitals and local doctors, and the people using it, it'll be a powerful global conversation. People will understand how to do something. We're coming close to the end of our program. We have 3 people with 5 minutes each just to comment on this. And what I'd like to do, first of all, is ask Alan Meadows to come up. Alan is the head of the 80,000 Employment Group with Ginger.
As David said, promise 5 minutes or even less. So I know this is very exciting, and thoughts of people will be learning from all over the world what we're showing them here in Reno. That's so exciting, but it is Monday night, and I know you're probably thinking, okay, it's about time to go. So just 2 more people after me. Let me tell you who the Nevada Business Group on Health is. I want to tell you just a little bit about the history, because I think hearing that, you'll better understand why we got involved with this. Or you may be asking yourself, why would you not want to be involved in something as exciting as this, right? Then I'll tell you currently kind of our status, and then tell you specifically how we are going to participate. So historically, you have to go back about 20 years. That's how long we've been here. What happened was a group of Reno's largest employers got together, and they wanted to talk about how they could learn from one another about how to improve the health of their employees. These were human resources and benefit professionals, many of whom are in the room tonight representing us. And they realized that all employees can be more productive if they, of course, are healthier. So together, these employers came together and they formed an organization called Nevada Healthcare Coalition. We're a nonprofit 501c6 organization. It's always been anchored by both public and private entities. Public entities, employers like Washoe County School District, Washoe County, City of Sparks, City of Reno, and private employers like Jonasquaga's Nugget, the ATLANTIS, IGT. Together, these employers embarked on numerous different initiatives, and the whole purpose was to bring greater value to health care, and health insurance benefits for their employees and dependents. And so the coalition grew dramatically, over 50,000 covered lives by around 2005. Today, we've changed our name. We're no longer the Healthcare Coalition. We're the Nevada Business Group on Health. And with that name change, we've broadened our base. We no longer are just made up of large employers. We have over 70 employers now. Some of them are very small employers, maybe less than 10 or 12 employees. And I mentioned that because going forward, any of our members can, and we encourage them to, participate in P2I, regardless of their size, whether they're fully insured or self-insured, but to participate. So how will we participate? 3 ways. Back at our July Board of Directors meeting, our board enthusiastically endorsed P2I, recommending that all of our employers participate. First, we ask that they allow individuals you heard from tonight to come in on campus, talk to our employees, and educate them on what we're trying to do and show why it's in their best interest to participate. Secondly, as an employer, we play a dramatic role in being able to encourage employees. And sometimes encouragement's not enough, and so the next thing you do is incentivize those employees. And so our members are going to incentivize these employees, whether through a reduction or a waiver of a copay, or less deductible or no deductible. That's how we will incentivize them to participate in this program. As employers, we know the costs. It's both hard costs and there's also soft costs. If you know anyone who's been affected within their family with autism or attention deficit disorder, diabetes, obesity, cancer, you know what an emotional toll that takes on someone. And you also know if that person's trying to also work, what that's like. So we definitely understand why this is needed. And with that, let me just say that the Nevada Business Group on Health is fully committed to this project. Thank you. Frank?
I'm Frank Rudolph, and I'm a board member of the forum. And I got to tell you, Sherry, you had me at good evening. Here's my pebble. I'm in. And why Reno? Why not Reno? This is a community that I love. It's a community that will get out, put the shovels in the dirt, and move some things to greatness. And the first time I ever talked to Dave Humphrey, he was talking to me from his hospital bed in Rochester, Minnesota. And I had to pull off the road because it got so deep so fast. Trying to keep up with this guy is incredible. This vision, I really think, started right there. We will make this work. This will be a fabulous thing. I cannot tell you how many pebbles are moving and the ripples are getting bigger and bigger, and it's wonderful. I'm happy to be a part of it. Thank you.
What a great evening, huh? You will never forget that you were here. This may be one of the most important nights of all of our lives. And I can tell you, having been in nonprofits for almost 35 years, my family has over 300 years of collective service to nonprofits. This is singularly the biggest thing that I personally have ever been involved in. And if my father and grandfather were here, having served in those capacities, I can assure you without any doubt in my mind, they would concur with us that this is the most important thing they've ever been involved in. Like David said, not too long ago, the board developed a consensus that we wanted to reach 1 million people globally, have a positive impact on them. And after being with you tonight and hearing your presentations and meeting many of you, I've never been more convinced that we can do this. Not only will we meet the goal of 1 million people, we'll go to 2 million and 3 million, because failure is not an option. And with your compassion, your commitment, your knowledge and wisdom, we can get that job done. I have no doubt about that in my mind. It gives me hope and confidence. And like Helen Keller said, optimism is the faith that leads to achievement. Nothing can be done without hope and confidence. And I'm leaving here tonight with increased hope and increased confidence that we can meet this mission. Each of you have our profound respect and admiration, and I can tell you on a personal level, you also have my steadfast prayers. It reminds me, and I'll close, since I was last, I wanted to be the most brief. There's nothing more powerful than an idea whose time has come, and this is our time. Thank you, and God bless each one of you. Thank you.
Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for joining us tonight. I hope you've been as impressed as I am, and I'm the executive director, and I should know what's going on. This has been a huge night. Thanks to Sherry and the people she's brought together. The forum has been proud to host this, and I hope we'll see you again in the pebbles that we're throwing.